Dear students, today I am going to explain to you the nutritional requirements of sports persons in the module on dietary guidelines for athletes. Sports activities were once upon a time considered leisure time activities often performed for recreational purposes. But slowly and gradually, these activities have grown to a professional status. Today, sports activity is considered to be a very highly structured, planned activity of high professional value. Sports persons are very different from apparently healthy population. This is because there are many varieties of sports and each sports activity will be requiring the performer to be possessing a specific type of body composition so as to perform well in that particular event, which means different types of sports activities will be demanding different body types with different body components. The strength, speed and endurance of the sports persons vary in different sports activities. This is how the sports persons are very different from non-sports persons. However, every sports person will be possessing physically fit body and is supposed to possess mental fitness as well. So, the body composition which is described for a reference person by ICMR is going to be different for a sports person who is definitely a physically and mentally fit individual, but who is also going to be performing in a highly structured activity that is meant for his profession. This makes it very important for us to know the various nutrient recommendations for sports persons, because ultimately we are what we eat. It is mainly the nutrition that would support the training given to the sports persons to perform well in their respective fields. Ultimately, it is the goal of every sports person is success. So, for a successful performance, definitely optimum nutritional support is very, very important. Through this module, you will be learning the difference in the body composition of sports persons and non-sports persons, the basics of exercise physiology, the need for various macro and micronutrients as well as energy, and also you will be learning about the prevalent nutritional problems among athletes and a little bit on the use of ergogenic aids by the sports persons. You will be learning the difference in the body composition of sports persons and non-sports persons, the basics of exercise physiology, the need for various macro and micronutrients as well as energy, and also you will be learning about the prevalent nutritional problems among athletes and a little bit on the use of ergogenic aids by the sports persons. Sports activity is a highly structured, planned activity which once considered as a leisure time activity, but today it is a highly professional activity, and a sports person or an athlete is a person who competes in one or more sports activities that involve physical strength, speed and or endurance. Athletes may be professionals or amateurs. It is very essential for sports persons to keep themselves physically and psychologically fit, which obviously depends upon their nutritional status. Fitness of sports persons largely depends upon their nutritional status, and hence recommendation of optimum nutritional guidelines to sportsmen require good knowledge about the types of sports activities, differences in the body composition of sports persons, energy metabolism and nutritional problems among athletes. Firstly, let us understand the energy systems used during various sports activities. During a sports activity, energy is produced from predominantly two systems, the anaerobic and aerobic system. The anaerobic system could be a lactic acid or phosphagen system and lactic acid system. However, it needs to be noted that very often an athlete's body uses more than one system to produce ATP during the activity. Let us look into the anaerobic systems of energy production during exercise. Firstly, the phosphagen or A-lactic acid or ATP-CP system. The main currency of energy in the body is ATP, which is stored in limited amounts, and hence it is very much required to regenerate the ATP during the activity. It is difficult for the body to possess sufficient amount of energy only in the form of ATP to support the sports activity. Hence, regeneration of ATP would sustain the exercise activity for a little longer duration. As you can see in the image, the body regenerates ATP from another high energy compound called phosphocreatine or creatine phosphate with the help of creatine kinase. However, this system supports the sports activity only for a very short period of time, ranging from 10 to 15 seconds. Sports activities such as 100 meters dash, sprint, weightlifting, throwing, etc. uses these aerobic energy system. Hence, sports activities of longer duration require alternate systems of energy production. The second anaerobic system of energy production is the lactic acid system, wherein glucose is oxidized under anaerobic conditions in order to generate ATP through glycolysis, and lactic acid is the end product of the same. Though this system results in the production of only 2 molecules of ATP from each glucose molecule, it is predominantly used in sports activities such as weightlifting, throwing and bodybuilding, and this system can support the activity for a period of 1.3 to 1.6 minutes. And coming to the aerobic system of energy production, the nutrients are utilized in the same manner as in a non-sports person's body under aerobic conditions. The body can produce enormous amounts of energy through aerobic systems by oxidizing mainly glucose and fatty acids through glycolysis and beta oxidation. TCA cycle and electron transport chains would become the common pathways for the complete oxidation of glucose and fatty acids. Sports activities such as marathon running, walking, cycling, etc. use this system to produce ATP. The type of energy system used during sports activity depends upon the type, intensity and duration of the activity. Based on the energy system used, sports activities are classified into 5 categories. High intensity short duration activities such as weightlifting use lactic acid system, whereas low intensity long duration activities such as long distance running using aerobic system of energy production, while several activities of moderate intensity and duration use both the systems as per the need. Thus, overlapping of the various systems of energy is seen in certain sports activities. The National Institute of Nutrition classified the sports activities into 5 categories, as you can see in the picture. The group 1 activities consist of power events of high weight category, which is 80 kgs and above, including weightlifting, boxing, wrestling, judo and throwing events. Group 2 activities include endurance events, that is marathon, long distance running and walking, road cycling, etc. And group 3 activities are team events. Group 4 activities are events of lightweight category like gymnastics, table tennis, etc. And the last group, that is group 5, includes skill games, shooting, archery, etc. Thus, the sports activities are classified in different ways. Let us now look at the nutritional needs of sports persons. Success in sports depends largely on the body composition and fitness of an athlete. The body compositional requirements differ according to the type of sports activity, and it is an absolute necessity to maintain the required body composition for an athlete through optimum nutrition and training for better performance. Regular consumption of sufficient energy, good quality carbohydrate, protein, fat and micronutrients is very essential to achieve success in sports. Firstly, to go into the details of energy requirements of sports persons, the components of energy requirements or expenditure are the same for athletes and non-athletes, but the body composition and level of physical activity are different between these two groups, with the sports persons being more muscular and physically more active. Thus, the energy needs of sports persons are higher, but vary according to the intensity and types of sports activity. Overall, an intake of more than 50 calories per kg body weight per day for male athletes and above 45 to 50 calories per kg body weight per day for females has been recommended by experts. The energy needs of team sports vary between the players as per the position and intensity of the activity of the player. Energy needs of sports persons vary as per the phase of the sports person also. There are basically three phases in sports person's life: the training phase, which is the longest one, pre-competition phase and competitive phase. But the energy requirements of high intensity short duration events such as sprinters, rowers, gymnasts, wrestlers and weightlifters remain high during training as well as during competition. However, the predominant source of energy will vary as per the type of sport. For example, carbohydrate is the primary energy source for high intensity short duration activities, whereas endurance athletes need fat and carbohydrate both as principal sources of energy. Failure to meet the energy requirements results in weight loss and impaired performance. All the three macronutrients are sources of energy for the sports persons, but carbohydrates are always given high priority among the three. Carbohydrate forms an important source of energy for most of the sports activities. It serves as an immediate as well as storage source of energy in the liver and muscle. However, the storage capacity of these tissues for glycogen is limited compared to fat. Hence, regular consumption of sufficient carbohydrate is very essential. Moreover, facilitating availability of carbohydrate before, during and after the exercise is one of the goals of carbohydrate ingestion, as carbohydrate depletion sets in fatigue and thereby impairs performance. Therefore, ingestion of 9 to 10 grams of carbohydrate per kg body weight per day is recommended for sports persons across in order to maintain sufficient glycogen stores in the body. Calculating carbohydrate provision through the diet in terms of percent energy contribution in a low calorie diet would underestimate the requirement compared to body weight based calculation. For example, 10 grams per kg body weight per day of carbohydrate for a 60 kg female runner would amount to 600 grams of carbohydrate per day, whereas if the total calorie consumption is less, that is 2200 calories, 60% of 2200 calories would amount to only 3.3 grams per kg per day of carbohydrate. Hence, it is always advisable to calculate carbohydrate requirement as per the body weight of an athlete. Since the intermittent intense activity of team sports diminish the glycogen stores fast, it is advisable to the team sports persons too to consume sufficient carbohydrate content through the diet. Duration and intensity of exercise influence the rate of glycogen synthesis in the body. Ingestion of carbohydrate, which is high to moderate glycemic index, in about 50 grams every 2 hours post high intensity exercise facilitates glycogen synthesis rather than in prolonged exercise. Ingestion of easily digestible carbohydrate during long duration moderate intensity exercise such as long distance running maintains blood glucose level, insulin concentration, stimulate glucose uptake and utilization by the muscle. Various combinations of carbohydrates such as sucrose, glucose, maltodextrins, glucose and fructose etc. given in a liquid form are found to be effective in improving the performance. However, fructose alone would be detrimental to the performance as it is very slowly absorbed. The carbohydrate requirement of the athlete varies with the intensity of the exercise as shown in the table. there is a practice of glycogen loading which is followed by endurance athletes. Glycogen loading is nothing but packing of muscles with glycogen in addition to what the body would have possessed without providing high carbohydrate diet or following any special strategy. The technique of carbohydrate or glycogen loading was first developed by a Swedish scientist in 1967. From then onwards, it has been modified several times, and however, the goal of carbohydrate loading is to support endurance activity which is lasting longer than 60 minutes. This technique increases the muscle glycogen which is from 80 to 120 millimoles per kg wet weight to 200 millimoles per kg wet weight. During a marathon, fat alone will not be sufficient to meet the energy needs, and carbohydrate ingested during the exercise would not be sufficient to meet the need as well. Hence, loading the body with glycogen prior to the exercise was thought to improve the performance and also delay the fatigue. Several protocols are followed for glycogen loading. Initially, it began with a 3-day program wherein high carbohydrate diet was given for 3 days after glycogen depleting exercise. The second regimen was a 6-day classical regimen wherein 3 days of high fat low carbohydrate diet was given after glycogen depleting exercise. Once again, the person is subjected to depleting exercise followed by 3 days of high carbohydrate diet during which the body stores maximum amount of glycogen. This is followed by the third classical loading procedure which has been described in 2 stages. Stage 1 is a depletion stage wherein there would be exhaustive exercise to deplete the body of glycogen on the day 1, during which there is a low carbohydrate diet containing 60 to 100 grams of carbohydrate given to the sports person in order to supply glucose to the brain and RBC. The second, third and fourth day, the sports person is provided with low carbohydrate, high protein and high fat diet, and then in stage 2, which is also termed as loading stage, high carbohydrate diet including 400 to 600 grams carbohydrate along with normal protein, minerals, fat, vitamins and water will be provided to the sports person. Besides offering the benefits of glycogen loading, there are other benefits such as prevention of dehydration in a sports person undergoing glycogen loading technique, because glycogen is stored only along with water. However, the water stored in the glycogen would also make the body heavy, and the extra weight negates the potential benefits derived from the extra glycogen accumulated in the body. Moreover, the high fat and high protein intakes during the depletion phase increase blood cholesterol and urea nitrogen levels. In low carbohydrate state, marked ketosis is also seen, the capacity to train is reduced, and there is also loss of lean body muscle in the athlete. In order to avoid these negative aspects of classical glycogen loading, modified glycogen loading procedure was developed, which is also a 6-day protocol wherein there is no depletion or exhaustion. Duration of training is reduced gradually, and first 3 days 50% of calories were provided through the diet in the form of carbohydrate, and 4th day is a rest day, and 5th, 6th and 7th days there will be a slow increase in the carbohydrate content of the diet towards 70% of the total calories. This technique improved accumulation of glycogen reserves to the same point as that of classical protocol. This is how carbohydrate in a sports person diet is always given special attention. Moving on to the requirements of fat. The fat consumption of athletes is usually adequate even if it forms a small percent of total energy consumption, because of their total energy requirement is high. No problems of fat deficiency have been reported, but it is of course essential to consume adequate amount of essential fat. Sometimes athletes end up eating more fat that may lead to cardiovascular problems. Hence, it is necessary to control the fat intake within the limits of 25 to 30% of total calories or 1 gram per kg body weight per day. Moreover, sufficient consumption of carbohydrate would mostly fulfill the energy needs of sports persons. Team sports with intermittent high intensity and moderate intensity exercise need only around 25% of total energy as fat, whereas endurance athletes with long duration moderate intensity exercise require slightly higher amount of fat, that is 25 to 30% of total energy. But short duration high intensity activities such as sprinting, though derive benefit from fat, it is not the prime source of energy. Fat loading is a novel concept wherein a diet comprised of low carbohydrate, high fat and high protein was believed to promote fat oxidation during exercise, but this concept lacks scientific evidence. A well planned aerobic training increases fat utilization. Let us look at the protein requirements now. Protein is a highly speculated nutrient among athletes. Many athletes eat dietary protein thinking that it would contribute to increment in their body muscle, and thus they give highest importance to it while neglecting the other macro and micronutrients. This strategy ultimately results in the body muscle loss and impaired performance. Hence, creating awareness on the importance of protein for better sports performance is very important. Functions of proteins are similar between sports persons and non-sports persons, which include bodybuilding, synthesis of enzymes and hormones, maintenance of fluid and electrolyte balance, etc., which certainly require good quality protein. Similarly, provision of energy is the least valuable function of protein. The protein requirements of sports persons vary according to the type and body composition as well as the phase of training. Players of team sports need 0.8 grams per kg body weight of protein to maintain their body muscle. Strength athletes need to consume more protein, that is equal to or more than 1.4 grams per kg of body weight to maintain their high body muscle content and thereby to perform high intensity exercise. Protein requirement of endurance athlete is similar to that of team sports persons, but higher intake around 1.3 to 1.4 grams per kg body weight, especially in the form of supplements, has been reported among successful long distance runners. Protein is used by endurance athletes even for energy production in times of need in addition to other functions. Bodybuilders and other strength athletes need higher dietary protein, that is around 1.5 to 2 grams per kg body weight per day, in order to maintain the lean tissue and maintain nitrogen balance. Consumption of protein supplements is common among these categories of sports persons. Micronutrient requirements of the sports persons need to be paid special attention because the high energy and macronutrient requirements increase their micronutrient requirements as well. Hence, if energy requirements are met, micronutrient needs would also have to be fulfilled by the same diet. But research shows that several athletes suffer from deficiency of certain micronutrients such as antioxidant, vitamins and minerals, calcium and iron too. Iron performs several functions in the body, with the most important being a constituent of hemoglobin, followed by its role in the cytochrome oxidases involved in energy metabolism. Iron deficiency is very common among athletes, especially female and endurance athletes. Sports anemia caused by heavy training and gastrointestinal bleeding is a well-known nutritional problem among athletes, especially endurance athletes who show low RBC count, packed cell volume and low hemoglobin concentrations. It is very necessary to meet requirements of not only iron to support the anemic situation, but also that of folic acid and vitamin B12, which are required for the synthesis of RBC. Female athletes often suffer from other nutritional problems such as osteoporosis due to calcium deficiency. This may be due to low calcium consumption or hormonal disturbances or both together, which induce bone desorption. Amenorrhea experienced by female athletes further complicate their nutritional problems. The combination of osteoporosis, amenorrhea and eating disorders is termed as female athletic triad, and this is often seen among gymnasts. Increased energy metabolism during exercise increases the demand for B complex vitamins, but as mentioned earlier, if energy and macronutrient requirements are met, the need for B complex vitamins would also be met easily provided the diet is well balanced. Vitamin C intake of athletes has received special attention due to the high physiological and oxidative stress as well as the need to support the immune system of the body. Supplementation was reported to be beneficial for performance in some cases. Besides the macro and micronutrients, it is also very important to pay attention to the fluid and electrolyte requirements of sports persons. Maintenance of optimum body water content is very crucial for sports person in order to maintain blood volume and regulate the body temperature during the activity. Dehydration of any degree impairs sports performance and might even pose a life threat. Hence, consumption of sufficient water and electrolytes on a daily basis is very essential. Moreover, hydration prior to, during and after a sports activity needs to be seriously considered to avoid dehydration induced complications and maintain good sports performance. Consumption of sports drinks containing glucose and sodium along with water improve the absorption of water. Finally, many sports persons consume certain compounds which are other than nutrients that would improve their performance, and these substances are often termed as ergogenic aids. There are many nutritional ergogenic aids including protein and certain amino acids along with certain hormones. However, use of certain anabolic hormones and steroids has been contraindicated. Thus, consumption of a balanced diet providing energy, nutrients and hydration is very important for successful performance of a sports person. Dear students, in this module on dietary guidelines for athletes, you have learnt about various energy systems that are used by the body during exercise, the various types of sports activities and the basis for their classification as well. You have also learnt that the body compositional demands vary according to the type of sports activity, and as the body composition varies, the nutritional demands also would certainly vary. Hence, it is very important to provide a well balanced, suitable diet for sports persons in order to contribute to their successful performance. It needs to be also kept in mind the age of the athlete when the diet is being planned. You may have an adolescent athlete or much younger athlete with you. So, keep in mind the demands of growth while to be added to the nutrient recommendations that are suggested generally for sports persons. However, never forget the eating disorders which are very commonly observed among gymnasts and other figure specific sports person, especially the females. Hydration also needs to be given special attention, and when you are planning the diet, keep in mind the pre, during and post event meal differences.